All right, so someone dropped a pretty hefty file on us about financial auditors.
Uh,
Looks like someone out there is thinking about a career shift, maybe even prepping for a big interview.
well, kudos to them for doing their homework. Financial auditors, they're kind of like the unsung heroes of the business world, making sure everything's running smoothly, financially speaking.
I like that unsung heroes. But, what strikes me looking at this RoleCatcher guide is it doesn't just sound like being a numbers whiz is enough. It seems like critical thinking, even communication skills, are just as vital. Why is that?
You hit the nail on the head there. Imagine this. You're a financial auditor. You're digging into a potential fraud case. You've gone through all the financial statements. You've spotted these discrepancies. But, and here's the catch, you got to be able to explain all of that sometimes to a room full of people who wouldn't know a balance sheet from a grocery list.
So it's about translating that financial jargon into something anyone can grasp and maybe even find, dare I say, interesting,
Yeah.
especially for stakeholders who might not be finance gurus themselves.
Exactly. You're telling a story that's clear, concise, convincing, because ultimately you're shaping decisions, you're influencing actions, and sometimes those communication skills, they're the difference between a minor accounting error and, well, a full-blown scandal.
Now, that's a powerful point. Speaking of uncovering things, how is technology, particularly AI and data analytics, shaking things up in the world of financial auditing, especially when it comes to something like fraud detection, like you were talking about?
Oh, the impact is huge. It really is. Think of it this way. Instead of having to manually comb through every single transaction, you've got AI sifting through mountains of data, flagging those little anomalies that might slip past even the most detail-oriented human auditor.
So AI is kind of like this super-powered magnifying glass,
Mhm.
helping auditors zero in on potential red flags way faster. Got any real-world examples of how this plays out?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say you've got a company and they're using those expense accounts, maybe to hide some shady dealings. AI algorithms can analyze all the spending patterns, and they can pick up on unusual trends, transactions that just seem off. Could be anything, from a spike in transactions with one specific vendor to expenses being filed just below that review threshold.
Wow, never thought about it that way. It's like having a digital detective in your corner, picking up on those subtle clues that could point to something much bigger.
Exactly. And that frees up human auditors to really focus on what they're best at. Interpreting all that data, figuring out the risks, and ultimately making those judgment calls that require human intuition, that expertise that's irreplaceable.
Okay, so we've established that being a financial auditor isn't just about being a math whiz. You've got to have that analytical mind, sure, but also those tech skills. And being a good communicator is huge. But what does all that look like, in terms of actually climbing that career ladder?
And that's where this rule catcher guide, it really comes in handy. They've laid out these typical stages of a financial auditor's career path, and they use these real-world examples, which I think makes it much more tangible.
Right, because senior auditor only tells you so much. So walk us through it. What are those early days of a financial auditor's journey like?
Well, usually you'd start as a staff auditor. It's all about the fundamentals at that point. Think assisting those senior auditors, conducting those more basic audits, always with that supervision, and of course, getting really familiar with those industry standards and regulations. That's key.
Makes sense, just like any profession.
Hmm.
Got to learn the ropes before you can start running the show.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher, they actually have this great example of a staff auditor profile. What's interesting is this person, even though they're early in their career, they're already going above and beyond pursuing those certifications like the CIA, which, shows real commitment.
Now that's impressive. Not just meeting expectations, but like exceeding them from day one.
Hmm.
So what's next on this career climb?
So as you get that experience, you become more proficient. You'd probably move into a senior auditor role. Now you're talking more responsibility, leading those audits, independently analyzing those financial statements, even starting to make recommendations to clients.
So it's that shift from being the support to being more of a leader yourself.
Absolutely. And with that comes a whole other skill set, not just the technical stuff, but being able to manage a team, communicate those findings to the higher ups, navigate those, shall we say, delicate client situations. It's a lot.
Sounds like a steep learning curve, but
Yeah.
man, talk about rewarding. Constantly challenged, constantly growing. So you've conquered senior auditor. What's next? What's at the top of this mountain?
Well, next logical step is, of course, management. RoleCatcher, they highlight a manager financial audit position, which
Hmm.
basically means you're overseeing multiple audit engagements, could be across different clients, even different industries. It can get pretty complex.
So instead of just managing yourself, maybe a small team, now you're What, conducting a whole orchestra of audits, each with their own little quirks and challenges?
Yeah, that is a fantastic analogy. And as you can imagine, those skills, they become even more important, more diverse, right? You need that strategic mind, that ability to manage those client relationships. You're identifying and mitigating risks, all while leading a team of auditors to deliver top-notch results.
Talk about wearing many hats. So for those folks who they're driven, they want to reach the peak of this career Everest, what's up there? What's after that management level?
Well, for those who are truly ambitious, you're talking senior manager, maybe even director of financial audit. At that level, you're basically the architect. You're shaping the entire auditing strategy for a whole organization.
So not just overseeing the audits themselves, but setting the standards, influencing those big picture decisions, basically safeguarding the financial integrity of, well, an entire company.
Exactly. And sure, getting to that level, it's demanding, no doubt, but the impact you have is huge. You're talking about ensuring financial transparency, accountability, you're building trust, which in the business world, it's priceless.
You said it. It's not just about climbing the ladder for the sake of it. It's about the impact you have every step of the way.
Yeah.
But let's face it, even the most driven person, they need to know how to navigate that job hunting jungle, right? So let's switch gears a bit. Talk about how someone who's interested in this field can absolutely nail that interview. After all, you could have all the skills in the world, but if you can't articulate that in an interview, well, those opportunities, they might just pass you by.
Yeah, because getting your foot in the door, that's often the toughest part. Fortunately, RoleCatcher, they don't just lay out the career path, they also give you some pretty solid interview pips. What are some of those common questions that, a budding financial auditor should be ready to tackle?
Well, they're definitely going to want to make sure you've got a good grasp on those core auditing principles, right? So be prepared to talk about your knowledge of auditing standards, those different risk assessment procedures, the importance of internal controls, that kind of thing. So it's not enough to just say, hey, I'm good with numbers. You've got to show them you understand the whole framework, the rules of the game when it comes to financial reporting and auditing.
You got it. But remember what we were talking about earlier, that communication piece. They don't just want to hear the technical stuff. They want to see you can actually explain it, make it understandable.
Right, because nobody wants to sit through a jargon-filled lecture, especially during an interview where the pressure's on. So how do you walk that line? Showing that technical expertise, but keeping it clear, engaging even.
Concrete examples, that's key. So instead of just saying, oh, I'm detail-oriented, you could say, in my previous role, I noticed this discrepancy in, and then you explain what you did, what steps you took. Highlight how your actions actually made a difference. That's impactful.
That's like storytelling, but with spreadsheets. Love it. RoleCatcher also mentioned questions about staying up to date on those ever-changing regulations, handling confidential information, all that good stuff. What are your thoughts on how to handle those topics?
Those are great opportunities to show you're proactive. You're not just keeping up, you're ahead of the game. Talk about specific publications you follow, industry conferences you've attended, maybe even online courses you've taken to stay sharp on the latest regulations or technologies.
So it's all about demonstrating that commitment to continuous learning, right? You're always evolving as a professional.
Absolutely. And when it comes to confidentiality, you want to emphasize that ethical conduct, that discretion. You can even draw parallels to past experiences where you handled sensitive information, showed your integrity.
It always comes back to trust, doesn't it?
Mm.
You're building that confidence with the interviewer, that you have the integrity, the judgment to handle those responsibilities.
And speaking of resources that can boost your confidence, RoleCatcher, it's not just a guide, it's like this whole platform geared towards giving job seekers an edge. Tell us more about that.
Oh, it's fantastic. Imagine having this tool that actually analyzes job descriptions and then helps you tailor your resume, highlighting the skills and experience that are most relevant for each application. Okay, that's huge, especially in today's job market. Talk about a game changer. What else does RoleCatcher offer?
Well, for one, they've got this massive database, millions of employers, and you can get insights into company culture, salary ranges, even potential career paths within those organizations.
Wow, it's like having a personal career advisor in your pocket.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. They even use AI to connect your profile with companies that are actively looking for someone with your specific skill set.
Now, that's impressive. RoleCatcher really does sound like a secret weapon for anyone navigating that, let's be honest, often daunting job search process. But even with all the right tools, all the preparation in the world, I think it's important to take a step back, remember the why behind a career in financial auditing? Why should someone be genuinely excited about this path?
That's such an important point. At the heart of it, financial auditing is about integrity. It's about transparency, accountability, making sure the financial system is, well, sound. And in a world where we're dealing with increasingly complex financial instruments, regulations that seem to change by the minute, the role of a financial auditor, it's more vital than ever.
It's about being that guardian of trust, making sure those numbers tell an accurate story, an ethical one. And in a way, isn't it kind of like detective work? You're uncovering the truth, connecting the dots, making sure everything adds up in the end.
100%. It's a career for those who are curious, a little skeptical, those who are deeply committed to ethical conduct.
So for those of you who love a good challenge, you've got that strong moral compass, and you want to make a real difference in the world of finance, this could be it. This could be your path.
I completely agree.
Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of financial auditors. We've uncovered what they do, the skills they need to thrive, and the impact they have. Plus, we even threw in some tips on how to break into this exciting field. Just remember, in a world overflowing with data, it's those critical thinkers, those truth seekers, the guardians of integrity who are going to shape the future of finance. And who knows, maybe that's you. This is The Deep Dive, signing off.